News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, it appears that the French on Crews versus Cederroos undisputed super middleweight title fight has found a home. It's set to be going down on Cederroos 2.
Next week.
September the 14th, which falls on a Tuesday on the undercard of Fat Joe versus Ja Rule.
Anybody Vici was a good album.
Might have to edge Ja Rule to win that one. Better still, the French on Crews versus Cederroos undisputed super middleweight title fight is the single most important fight set to go down anywhere at or around these weights. You're talking about 154, you're talking about 160, and you're talking about 168. I think that Clarissa Shields might be the biggest name anywhere at or around these weights. She might be, but
This is the most important fight for the time being.
for right now, in the immediate future, I mean, we all know that Clarissa Shields was very recently signed to Sky Sports alongside her amateur and professional rival, Savannah Marshall. But that fight's not going to go down this year. If that fight's going to go down, it'll be sometime next year. So for the time being, this fight is the most important fight. And I have no doubts that the winner of this fight could see themselves facing the winner of that fight, the winner of Shields versus Marshall. For Cederroos, the statuesque boxer from Sweden, unified super middleweight champion, it's been a long time since she swapped punches with anybody. She hasn't had a fight since January of last year. In that way, it's been well over a year since she saw any action. Franchone, however, she has seen action in the last 12 months. She was last in action in January of this year in what was a keep busy fight, a very beneficial keep busy fight, as Franchone won't be coming off some long stint of inactivity. She has no ring rust to have to shake off.
I'm glad this got rescheduled.
Because this division, these divisions, they need this fight. They need this hierarchy, this pecking order, the structure that is once established as soon as a victor emerges.
And we'll talk more about this fight and get into a full fight breakdown
as the fight date approaches. In other news, former WBC lightweight champion Delphine Persoon continues to integrate herself into the super featherweight division. She's got a fight coming up November the 1st against an opponent that has yet to be announced. It will be her second fight since having lost that rematch to none other than Katie Taylor. Delphine was last in action in July of this year against Russia's own Elena Grodnar.
Delphine won a unanimous decision.
And you know, Elena, she ain't one of these tiny women that's got some kind of upside-down record. Ahead of that fight, Elena had only ever lost one fight, only one career loss. Now two, thanks to Delphine Persoon. So she's still got it. And there are implications associated with one such as Delphine integrating herself into this division, this weight class, an already very deep division, an already very deep weight class with no shortage of champions and challengers, Delphine Persoon among them. She cannot be ignored. She cannot be denied. In those two Katie Taylor fights, regardless of how you scored them, Delphine made a name for herself.
Don't misunderstand me.
Anybody who knows the sport of women's boxing and knows the fighters, they knew about Delphine Persoon. They knew what she could do. But for all those people out there that didn't know her, Delphine Persoon's coming out party was those two Katie Taylor fights, because a lot of people got to see what I've been telling you about for years.
She ain't nothing to fuck with.
And she's not the least bit subtle. She's not your, according to Hoyle, pure boxer.
She's dangerous, nonetheless.
Very few girls out there between 130 and 135 pounds can maintain pace throughout the course of a match that Delphine Persoon can and keep the punches coming, keep the fists flying. She's a handful for any of those girls, any of those challengers, any of those champions at 130 pounds. And because she made a name for herself in that Katie Taylor fight, a name that perhaps a lot of people, they weren't familiar with then, but they are now. It's for this reason that you can't freeze her out. She can't be ignored. She is a name.
She's got one.
I knew it before she fought Katie. And now you do too. And so do the rest of those girls out there looking to make a name for themselves. At some point, one of them is going to have to deal with Delphine. She is everybody's fucking problem.
Yeah!
As if this division wasn't deep enough already. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Oscar Valdez says, I've never been as hurt as this before. Being discredited is one of the worst feelings. I just came out of a great victory. The guys loved me back then, and now you're calling me a cheater when you guys don't really know the real facts. I'm responsible for what I should have been taking, but I don't know how it got into my system. If there's anyone out there who doubts it, well, I'm sorry, but I could truly say nothing intentional was done. I'm not a cheater, never will be. Oscar Valdez, he got some advice from Canelo Alvarez when the news broke. And, he said, everybody saw my face when they told me I came back positive. He walks up to me and he tells me, everything's going to be all right. The truth is going to come out. We all know the way you work. We all know that you're a clean fighter.
You almost want to believe him.
Because Oscar Valdez, up until this point, had a squeaky clean image. He was coming off a career best win over Miguel Berchelt, who most of us, myself included, picked to not only beat Oscar,
but knock him out.
Listen, you got a positive A sample, you got a positive B sample. That in unison with all the other red flags. The boxes tick off. Oscar Valdez against Miguel Berchelt, he didn't look like the same guy that fought Scott Quigg. He didn't look like the same guy that fought Adam Lopez.
Became a completely different fighter overnight.
Some very cynical boxing fans out there, that dramatic change in Oscar's base style and his ability to perform, to some,
that's a flag.
That's a big enough indictment in and of itself. You tack on a positive test for a banned substance, and it all makes sense. It all fits, regardless of what explanations Oscar wants to give. Before, his lawyer was saying that it came from an herbal tea, the phentermine.
What, Twinnings?
Lipton? I mean, if it came from a particular tea, a particular brand, and you can remember what brand it was, all you have to do to clear your name is send that brand out to a lab.
Have them tested for phentermine.
VADA provides this service to the athletes free of charge, and you can have your results in a matter of days. Oscar Valdez didn't do that. Maybe it's because Oscar Valdez's story has dramatically changed from once we first heard it.
They're not blaming it on tea anymore.
Whatever. Herbs and spices are part of the ingredients of this very mysterious tea that also contains phentermine. Now, they are completely disavowing any knowledge of how this banned substance might have found its way into Oscar Valdez's system.
That's convenient.
It's because he's lying. I know some of you out there don't want to hear this, but
it looks the way that it looks.
And in this sport, it just is what it is. Myself, I'm not lighting up tiki torches and gathering the pitchforks over Oscar Valdez's failed tests because after years of being a boxing fan, I'm desensitized to these situations. I'm desensitized to these scenarios where a fighter, an otherwise clean fighter, tests positive for a banned substance. It happens. It just happened to Jean Pascal, who was very adamant that Bernard Hopkins take an anti-doping test with him. I mean, these guys, they're very good actors when they want to be.
They are talented liars.
You won't see me losing my mind over that. Even if the WBC decided not to penalize Oscar, I'm not going to lose my mind because he's not the first guy that tested positive for a banned substance who walked away with a slap on the wrist. The exact same thing happened to Luis Ortiz, more or less. He tested positive for a banned substance ahead of what was supposed to be the first Deontay Wilder fight. A banned substance that's classified as a masking agent. You let Luis Ortiz tell it, it's blood pressure medication. But Luis Ortiz had already tested positive for a banned substance once before, years before, nandrolone. So do you think I'm going to believe it coming from him? And when that happened, the Wilder fight got delayed. It did get postponed, but Luis Ortiz wasn't penalized.
The same way Oscar's not being penalized.
And this is why I'm desensitized to all of this. This is why I, unlike many others, I'm not losing my mind over it. As far as I'm concerned, this sport is dirtier than people know.
They don't like to admit it.
Confront it. And when the filth rears its ugly head every so often, they pick and choose when they want to let it bother them. They pick and choose when they want to be outraged. Tony Bellew is a prime example. In reference to Oscar Valdez's current situation, he said it's a fucking disgrace. The fight is going ahead. What the fuck's gonna go on if that boy gets hurt? Someone tell me. If Conceição gets hurt in that fight, that could be the end of boxing.
He's raising a lot of valid points.
As he lambasts Oscar Valdez for his positive test and the powers that be for allowing this contest to go on, you don't see him going up to bat for Oscar Valdez the way he went up to bat for Billy Joe Saunders when he tested positive. The quotes from Tony Bellew that time are as followed. if you're talking about fighters who have taken over-the-counter products like Billy Joe or Dillian White, I've got an enormous amount of sympathy for them. Notice that they're two UK guys. I don't class heavyweight Dillian White as a steroid cheat because he drank a drink he got over the counter. If it's proven that Billy Joe Saunders sniffed a nasal spray, I believe the person who gave it to him knew. But Billy would have never taken a steroid. I know that because I have spent a lot of time around Billy. Luis Ortiz is a banned steroid cheat for nandrolone in 2017. It was actually 2014. In 2017, that was the blood pressure medication. Better still, Alexander Povetkin twice tested positive for meldonium and aspirin in 2016 and is a cheating scumbag. Guys who inject steroids into themselves, there's no condoning that. Billy Joe can't even spell oxylophrin. He doesn't know what that is, but I'm pretty sure everyone in boxing knows who gave it to him. I'm pretty sure everyone in boxing knows why he was given it. He did not know that. Whoever gave him that needs banning. Billy Joe Saunders has not taken a performance-enhancing drug injected into him like Ortiz, like Povetkin. Billy hasn't done that. I know Billy is no cheat. And you're using your association, your relationship with the fighter, and his character to exonerate him of guilt due to a banned substance that was found in his system. People are doing that right now with Oscar Valdez, and you're lambasting him.
You're not extending him that courtesy.
You know that phentermine, it's not an anabolic steroid. It's not like nandrolone. It's not that kind of drug. It's not that kind of pad. They're all banned substances at the end of the day, but you'll notice the inconsistency, Tony Bellew, when a UK guy is involved, and when it's a Cuban, a Russian, or in this case, a Mexican, and everybody's doing it. I'm not telling you that these guys are innocent. I'm telling you, as far as I'm concerned, they're all guilty. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. It's too easy to get swept up in the stories and all the different explanations as to how it is that got there, believing the story from someone you have something in common with. It's very easy to do this the way that Tony's doing it. But at the end of the day, one thing don't change. A banned substance was found in the fighter's system.
You don't keep the same energy depending on who the fighter is.
You don't extend the level of understanding for an Oscar Valdez that you extend to a Billy Joe Saunders. Listen, I don't believe Oscar's story. 9 times out of 10, I don't believe any of these guys' stories because these guys are more responsible than either I or you for what goes into their bodies, and that's the life of an athlete. These dog-ate-my-homework explanations, I don't buy any of them.
9 times out of 10, I don't.
And even if by some chance I do, I don't spend a lot of time on them because the indictment, it's the same. There's a banned substance in the fighter's system. It's not going to get there on its own. I think Oscar's guilty. I think a lot of guys are guilty. And I don't lose sleep over it. You know why? Because the sport of boxing don't lose sleep over it.
And that's why it keeps happening.
Finally, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, unfortunately, Sonny Edwards has been forced to withdraw from his IBF World Flyweight Championship defense on Saturday night at the Copper Box Arena with an ankle injury. More details to follow regarding the Edwards versus Mama fight and Saturday night's show. Sonny Edwards himself stated, "Gutted that my fight on Saturday is off. We'll have a rescheduled date ASAP. Want to apologize firstly to my opponent, Jason, and his team, as I understand the frustration they must be feeling. Secondly, Frank Warren and BT, as my homecoming was set to be the biggest night of my career." Sonny Edwards has been very outspoken as of late in reference to everything that's been going on with Oscar Valdez. There are those out there that interpreted Sonny's ankle injury as karma coming back to bite him in the ass, the ankle rather, for attacking what's supposed to be an innocent man, and that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. Though I did get a sense of impending doom for Sonny, knowing that he was going to be in action so soon.
It felt like he had a lot riding on this fight.
Against the unbeaten Jason Mama, 16 wins, no losses, with 9 knockouts hailing from the Philippines.
Nicknamed the Smasher.
I don't know, it just felt like kind of a banana skin at a time when Sonny Edwards is coming off a career best win over the then long-reigning champion Mythilane for what was his IBF title at the time. Sonny Edwards
He boxed his socks off.
he really did, and a lot of people, a lot of boxing scholars, they picked Mythilane to knock Sonny's block off, and that's not what happened. Sonny almost pitched a shutout against the then reigning champion. The title changes hands, Sonny's supposed to defend it, and given everything that's been going on and what's been on Sonny's mind, this entire situation with Oscar Valdez, the Eddie Reynoso gym, the fact that Julio Cesar Martinez, he tested positive for clenbuterol.
Martinez, the guy that beat up his brother.
Sonny's brother, Charlie Edwards, in 2019. That fight was ruled a no contest due to Julio Cesar Martinez striking Charlie Edwards as Charlie Edwards was downed. Ever since then, as you can imagine, there are some hard feelings there. Both the Edwards brothers suspected foul play. Both the Edwards brothers suspected that, Julio, he might be on something. Some time passes and it turns out he pops for clenbuterol.
Coincidence?
I mean, if you've been wondering why it is that Sonny Edwards has been so vocal as of late in reference to Oscar Valdez and the Reynoso gym, that would be the why. That would be the reason, because of what took place between his brother, Julio Cesar Martinez, and what happened after that. How Julio tested positive for clenbuterol and got off with a slap on the wrist. That is due to the revised protocols in reference to clenbuterol as a drug, the acceptable and non-acceptable threshold for it, and how Julio Cesar Martinez, along with Ray Vargas, they both tested positive. The then WBC Super Bantamweight champion, Ray Vargas, who has since moved up in weight, vacated his title. They both tested positive for that banned substance, but it was trace amounts found in their system. Not enough to constitute an actual benefit, though that in and of itself sets a very dangerous precedence, because so what?
So what if it's just trace amounts?
As far as I'm concerned, that drug should be qualifiable, not quantifiable, because how do you know that you're not catching a guy at the end of his cycle? How do you know that you're not catching a guy at the right time to where most of the drug has already left the system? You don't know. For that reason, it should be qualifiable, not quantifiable. And this is how you can explain Sonny Edwards is hard on for this entire situation. Oscar Valdez, Julio Cesar Martinez, Canelo Alvarez, the Eddie Reynoso gym as a whole. He suspects that all of those guys are on something. And maybe they are, but that's the sport.
It's a dirtier sport than people know.
A dirtier sport than people realize, and that's why I sit back and I look at this outrage, and it's almost comical. This song and dance, this game of musical chairs we often see in the sport of boxing whenever a guy gets popped.
I understand why it bothers Sonny.
This shouldn't have to be an occupational hazard for what already is such a hazardous occupation. It shouldn't, but the sport itself is complicit with everything we're seeing.
It just is what it is.